Welcome to Earth is Waking Up. This is your host, Jeremy Anderson. Today we're interviewing Jennifer Dawn of JenniferDawnCoaching.com. Now, Jennifer is the owner of Jennifer Dawn Coaching, founder of the Best Planner Ever and Best Journal Ever, and author of The Joy Guide, Finding Your Joy in a World of Crap. She began her entrepreneurial career selling apples off her grandfather's tree because a lemonade stand was just so yesterday. She's a serial entrepreneur who has grown several multi-million-dollar businesses, is a successful speaker and author. She helps motivated entrepreneurs master their goals, achieve a mindset for success, and build remarkable businesses and lives through whole life productivity and coaching. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here as well. One of the things that, well, no, we'll get there. Well, maybe first give us, if you would, a brief intro of your background. We've kind of got some of it there, but maybe if you want a high level and then something interesting that you haven't shared much yet.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So high level, I've obviously been an entrepreneur since I was a small child, had several other little businesses here and there. It was interesting when I started my apple stand, because the lemonade stand, I was like, no, all the kids do that. I have to do something different. But my grandfather was a chiropractor and his office was attached to the home. And so we had patients coming in and out all day, and there was an apple tree in the front yard. And I was just like, you know what? I could totally do an apple stand. And I just remember like the pure joy of putting the little pieces together. And then at the end of the day, like standing there and looking in my hand, and I had these like shiny quarters, that I had made. And it was just such an amazing feeling to turn an idea into money and have it just, to me, that just felt like pure joy. Plus my grandfather, they were healers. They worked from their home office, and I loved that whole idea that you could have a life, you could have a business, and just, turning your ideas into money just really, really appealed to me. So that's where it all started. And it's funny because now, I have, of course, worked in corporate. I don't anymore, but I've kind of come full circle where I have a home office. I work from home. I don't have an apple tree in my yard, but still that idea of having the family and having the home and having a business and a career and all that stuff together really was something that resonated with me. And I've kind of come full circle right back to it.
Yeah, but did you have horses in the yard?
I have a horse, but he's not in the yard. He's at a barn. If I could have him in my yard, I totally would.
So how do you feel that contributed to your ability to be such an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur now?
Yeah, absolutely. Just the idea of being able to kind of control your own destiny, and it's not to say that there's anything wrong with having a job. I think I've had jobs. I think if that's really where you're suited and you're doing work that you love, it kind of doesn't matter if you have your own business or you're in a corporate job. But for me, it's just been, I don't know, I guess I'm a bit of a risk taker. And for me, I just love kind of having some control over my own destiny and my own fate and not really being limited in what I want to do. And if I have an idea and I want to create something, I have that freedom to be able to do it. I don't have to go through, multiple levels and get people to approve it or anything like that. I can just bring an idea into fruition very, very quickly. Now, as an entrepreneur, it could fail miserably, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with at least I tried and I did what I could do, to make it successful. So I just feel like that's the piece that I really love, is having that control over my fate.
Yeah, that's a huge thing and a huge shift from working a job, because one of the things that I've been learning more and more is that shifting my mindset from working a job to where I am as unlimited as I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have somebody else defining what my job duties are and what I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do. Like, I'm so done with that mindset.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They know what I'm capable of and what I'm not, and trying to limit me because of it. And
yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I've also noticed that it could be challenging to continually work through that shift and be willing to fail. What have you found in working with entrepreneurs and on your own have you found to be most helpful in shifting through that mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Because if you are going to be an entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur, being able to shift and recognize when you need to shift is almost like it's really a skill that you have to grow and build and develop. And so this is one of the things. So when I work with clients and let's say they're transitioning out of a corporate job and they're trying to, start their own business, this is one of the hardest things for them because they're in the mindset of I go to work, I do my job, I get a paycheck. And in a business, it doesn't necessarily work like that. You go to work, you do your job, but it might be a while before you get a paycheck. Or your paycheck may not be super steady, in the beginning. And so that ability to really change and pivot and be flexible is just super, super important. Because if you get upset over every little bump in the road of the entrepreneurial journey, you're not going to make it. It is not going to be a fun road if you cannot, have a really great sense of humor, have a really good, clearly defined focus and path, have strong character traits like self-discipline and determination, and these are the kinds of things that are really going to help you be successful.
That's a great point. And so how would you explain what might be most helpful for people to learn how to learn that resilience, and
Mm-hmm.
and then also to start building their habits to working into being accountable to themselves?
Yeah, another great question. And so, because resilience essentially, like, not everybody is born with resilience. It's one of those things that can be cultivated and strengthened as we go through our lives. And so, the first thing that I believe that is necessary is one, you have to take responsibility. And if you're, blaming everybody and making a whole lot of excuses, you're not taking responsibility. And I'm not saying that, other people maybe didn't, affect something that might have happened to you. I get it. I've had plenty of things bad happen in my life too. But you have to first take that responsibility for this is what happened to me, but what am I going to do with it? And so if resiliency is one of those things that you're just like, oh, I really struggle in that area, the first thing would be to own it. Second thing would be to set your intention that, this is something that I want to strengthen and grow and improve on. And then once you've made that commitment, then the answer is, okay, well, now what do I do, right? Like now, how do I start to build that daily habit almost of how am I going to be resilient? And this is going to be specific to everybody's individual journey, like wherever you happen to be, because how I might build my resiliency and how you might build yours, Jeremy, might be two very, very completely different things. And so if you're clear on, well, I need to grow my resiliency because of, this specific thing that's going on in my life, from there, you can just ask yourself a simple question like, what do I need to do every day to build this? And it might be whatever it is, whatever you need to do every single day, right? To like build that resiliency, to build that habit, and then tie it into some sort of a tool, a daily tool that can remind you. There are apps. I came across, actually, somebody told me about a great app called Habit Bull, Bull, Habit Bull.
Huh.
I've been playing around with it. It's pretty cool. So if you're trying to build a habit around resiliency, some area you need to be strengthening, you can decide, well, what do I need to do every day? And you can put it into an app and you can be like, yes, I did this today, or no, I didn't do this today. You could build it into some sort of a daily planner, right? So that you're reminding yourself that I need to just do this habit every day. And once you then start to do the habit for so many days in a row, you're going to see that it will start to then become part of, this is just who I am. And once it's kind of now just become part of like your character and who you are as a person, like your identity, it gets a whole lot easier because then it just becomes who you are. I consider myself to be an incredibly resilient person. Like I don't like intentionally, I used to, I don't anymore. I don't intentionally bring stuff in that I have to show how resilient I am, but whatever life brings, I know I can get through it. So, and again, it's just, you just have to kind of work at it every single day.
So you probably learned some of that as a kid, right?
Yeah.
Any examples you can remember that might explain some of how you learned that
Well,
job?
I had a really rough childhood. So my father was sexually abusive. My mother knew, did nothing about it, and she's a very, very toxic person. And so the two of them together were kind of a nightmare as a child. I did have my grandparents, which we would spend the summers there as children, and those are some of the best memories I have. And honestly, a lot of the childhood stuff, it was more like, surviving when I was with mom and dad and thriving when I was with the grandparents. But I remember there being a time when I was 13 and I said to myself that the stuff that had happened to me with my father, I don't know why, but I was just 13. I was just like, no matter what he did, it isn't going to ruin my life. And I just made
Wow.
the choice right then that because I think I had seen like a news story about a woman who had been abused and like her whole life was a complete disaster. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen to me. And so I think a lot of that childhood stuff, I would never wish it on anybody. But as far as like building that mental toughness and that resiliency and that determination, it was probably one of the best things that I took away from my childhood because I kind of had to survive. I was either going to survive or I wasn't. And I decided at a young age that I was going to survive.
I feel you're super lucky because I've got three sisters that suffered the same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
yeah,
a tough thing to overcome because that initial programming that kind of gets in us at a young age, we carry that throughout life. And it wasn't really until I was an adult. I mean, I was very successful in my career, but I wasn't successful like in my marriage. I was married twice before, and I wasn't successful in those intimate relationships. And I know a lot of that was from the abuse and stuff that I picked up as a child. And so it was really later in my adult years that I went and had to do a lot of pretty intense healing
yeah,
on that to really clear it completely because I noticed like I'm just was in these patterns and bringing things in and I'm like, what is going on here? And I really had to get in there and kind of clear all that stuff out and eliminate those old patterns and
yeah.
heal it so that I no longer brought it into my life.
And by lucky, I just mean by how well you've healed from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not everybody does.
Not everybody does. They really don't. And it's interesting to me that I don't know how else to describe it other than like a mental toughness that some people seem to develop and other people don't for whatever reason. But thank my lucky stars. It was a way, I guess, almost maybe a coping mechanism that I chose was that I was going to be tough and I was going to survive it. Nothing was going to stop me, and that's actually been a skill that I've used in my business. That's really served me quite well.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sure that it serves all entrepreneurs quite well because you've always got unknowns, right? And
Right.
so I'm guessing that you probably do you have any ways that you train people you're coaching, other entrepreneurs, or yeah, that
Oh
help?
yeah. This is something we work on a lot. I'm going to say that, mindset is probably your number one
Uh-huh.
reason. Like any problem you have in your life or your business can be solved if you're in the right mindset to solve it.
Yeah.
And the problem is we get so like under the problem and in the problem and we're not in the right mindset to solve it.
You
And
know,
so, yeah.
I'm curious your top couple ideas on or first or top top ones mindsets that
Yeah.
need to be shifted. First around victimization
Yeah.
mindset, right? Um, and then, like you said, shoot, go ahead. Yeah, there was something else I wanted to ask, but
No, it's okay. I'm sure you remember it again, so it's all good. But this is where like if you're going through something that's awful and your mindset is getting sucked like into whatever the awfulness of the situation is, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody who might be struggling through something, like it's definitely a challenge. But getting your mind into a place where you can see the problem from a different perspective or practice gratitude or figure out what you need to learn from it. I think in terms of frequency a lot. And so when I think of my frequency, and if I have a problem, it's like, wait a second, what frequency am I at right here? Am I pissed off and angry and
okay.
being the victim or doing whatever because I know I can't solve the problem from that mindset.
Uh-huh.
And so I've got to go do something to get myself into a good place. And then once I'm in a good place, I can look at the problem from a completely different perspective. But being able to shift your mindset, one, recognize you're in a bad place, and then two, take action to actually get into a better place, like that's totally a skill. And so
Totally.
that's something with my clients that we absolutely work on, is that ability to shift
Perfect.
it and get ourselves into a better place so we can solve the problem.
Perfect. Yes. And so you've had great success with that, it sounds like.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
Um,
and people, the more they practice it, and I give them a lot of tools and ways to do this, the more they practice it, the better they get at it. And then before you know it, it's like, it'll be funny, like, maybe a year after I've worked with somebody and they have a challenge and they're like, but here's what I did, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, perfect. Like, I got nothing. Like, that's it. and it works. Like, once you start to practice these things, and the beautiful part is that once you learn them, they will serve you for life. You only have to learn it once.
Yes. Once we get enough support from external sources, other
Yep.
people, coaches, eventually we learn how to find those things out on our own,
Right.
figure it out, and just do it.
Right.
And sometimes it takes some hand holding to get to that point and
Yeah.
have that confidence. And
Right.
it's like perfect support. So another question on the mindset is, I thought you said something that reminded me of it, but how we have the different levels of thinking, right? So there's uh, how to jump through those different levels, because there is the detail, and then there's the higher level and everything in between. How Any tips on how to kind of navigate, if you're focused on details, how to remember the higher level so that you're still checking in frequently?
Yeah, like to just pay attention to your frequency of where you're at. And
Right.
so, one of the ways that I remember it is ABC, always be connected. And so, whatever your definition of connected is to whatever higher source you subscribe to. And so, for me, when I think of being connected, I think of being in a place that is, joyful and happy. And I almost see it like from being kind of up above everything and sort of looking down. So, I'm observing it, but I'm not really caught up in it, but I'm observing it and feeling really good about how it all feels. And so I'll just check in with myself, am I connected or am I not connected? And that, of course, requires you to just be really in touch with your emotions and how you're feeling, and being willing to say, you know what, I'm really upset right now, or I'm really sad, or I'm really depressed, or I'm really whatever. And give yourself a break and be like, hey, I'm really sad right now. And it's okay. Let me be sad. I have a journal, and the point of the journal is all about journaling out the negative emotions so that you have a safe space to kind of work through it. Because once you acknowledge it and start to work through it, then it can be released. And once it released, it's almost just like freedom. It's like, oh, okay, I feel so much better now. And you'll almost naturally kind of raise up to that higher space.
Yeah. So it sounds like by connected, you're talking about always keeping paying attention to that higher level
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always.
You have any tricks in doing that? Do you meditate regularly or something? Or
I do. So I meditate regularly. Absolutely. I try to get in about 30 minutes of yoga every day, because that just also helps me stay grounded. And then I have a really highly technical thing called a sticky note. And I don't know if you can read it. It says, be mindful and be grateful. And it's on my monitor. So whenever, in a bright green sticky note. And so it's just these little reminders, and I have sticky notes like on my bathroom mirror. I have them on my kitchen cabinet, and it's just ways of places where I am, and it will remind me to just like, wait a second, be mindful. And for me, as I go through the day, as I'm transitioning from different parts of my day, I like to just take a moment, even do a 1 or 2 minute just transitional meditation to just sort of reset, set my intention for what I want the next segment of my day to be like. And that for me is just really, really helpful to not just be rushing mindlessly through the day, but to really be kind of pacing yourself, staying grounded. It's hard to be mindful, and you can't be grateful if you're in a really bad place. And so if I am, I can then do the work to get my mindset where I want it to be.
So it sounds like that's probably a big part of what you utilize to help overcome feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I heard a great speaker, and I can't remember his name, but he said, overwhelm, nobody should be overwhelmed. And in fact, overwhelm is just a belief system that you've bought into.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful to me because obviously I have a daily planner. I'm all about productivity. I'm a coach and I help people change their belief systems. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. We've just bought into this idea of overwhelm as a belief system that for some reason we have to be overwhelmed, and it's total crap.
Yeah.
And so I've actually just kind of really, I've eliminated overwhelm from my life. I'm not going to be overwhelmed. My resolution for this year was to never do anything that causes me any exhaustion. And so it's really, again, just made me much more aware of the choices I'm making, because if something is going to, be too much or cause exhaustion, I'm like, no, I'm just going to say no to it, because I don't want to be in that state. I went through too many years of my life being stressed out, overwhelmed. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. So you've come up with a planner. What other tools? It sounds like you've got a whole toolbox full. What can you explain what would make you irresistible for people that would want to work with you, that would be looking for that kind of coaching, either to transition from a job into being an entrepreneur, or if they're already an entrepreneur looking to take it to the next level, or even just taking their career to the next level?
Oh gosh, great question. What would make me irresistible? I'm sure my husband could answer that question better than me, but
Clients.
yes, my clients.
Clients.
Oh my goodness. So I would say that somebody who's really looking for the bigger picture, because I really focus on whole life business coaching, whole life productivity. I'm not the kind of coach that's just going to be like, burn the midnight oil, work 12 hours a day. That would not be a good fit for me at all.
Do this, hurry up, do this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm really looking for, I love working with entrepreneurs, and I work with entrepreneurs from beginning stages, startups, all the way up to multi-million-dollar businesses. But the thing that they have in common is that they're all looking for the whole picture, their whole life. We don't want to sacrifice health and wellness or their love relationships so that they can grow a business. And so people who want that balance in their lives, I would be a most excellent fit for. And people who I would say are a little more spiritually minded. It's not that I don't deal in a lot of, tactical, analytical business things every day. But I really do bring a lot of the spirituality, the energy work into it, because, we have to manage our time, but we really have to manage our energy too.
Yeah, and our time in our lives. I think it's easy in midlife if we've got kids to pay somebody else to raise them for us while we're busy working, right?
Exactly. And that's not something that I would be coaching any of my clients on. I want to coach them on being a better parent, because that's going to make them happier, and that's going to make them feel more satisfied and fulfilled. And then when they show up in their businesses, they're coming at it from a real good place, and not like, angry or resentful that I have to give up time with my kids to run this business, which is something I did in my first two businesses. I don't do it now, but in my first two businesses, I was there, and yes, I got the success on paper, but I didn't get the success in life.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've also got this day planner. Can you tell us about this? How it came about, how you came up with the design, because you couldn't find it anywhere else.
Right. I couldn't find a planner that would bring the whole life perspective, the spiritual side, and the actual, like, I've got to manage my time. I couldn't find anything that was doing all of those. And so I created it myself, and I told my husband, this is the best planner ever. And he's like, really? I'm like, yes. And I was like, I'm going to call it that. And he thought I was crazy, but I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. And that was, oh my goodness, that was 5-6 years ago when I first started with it. But that's where it really came from, because in the planner, you've got areas for your vision. So I really believe in getting a super crystal clear vision of where you want to go. Of course, place for your goals, and then of course your daily plan. But in your daily plan, I've got affirmations built in there. I've got nutrition tracking. So it's really like when you sit down to plan your day, it's really kind of like your whole life that you're planning, not just, the work pieces.
Great. So because I've seen planners that I haven't been quite happy with either. Either they don't have enough or they've got too much, and it's just
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of planners out there to choose from. And I always say, find one that really works for you. It's kind of a personal preference. And I just needed more room than one little box. And so that's why in mine you have a full page to plan the day. But it's super functional. It's spiral bound. The paper is black and white. Like, I didn't want anything stopping me from writing on the paper. It's not too pretty because I was just like, no, if it's too pretty, I don't want to write on it. So yeah, and then I've got affirmations and stuff like built in there so that it's just these kind of gentle reminders as you go through the day, to be quiet and to take care of yourself and those sorts of things. So I don't know, there's something about having a whole page to just kind of sit there and like design your day that's really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Great. So now you've got a free gift offer that for our guests, the Joy Guide.
I do. My
Find
book, the Joy Guide, Finding Your Joy in a World of Crap. And I am going to give away the first 5 chapters of that book. And so that is my free gift for everybody today.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Thank you for that.
And you'll love it because I think it's in chapter 5. There's a well-being assessment in there. So kind of everything we've talked about, like when we talked about getting clear about where you want to go and your direction, that's a great tool to start with, where you can just start kind of looking at each area of your life and figuring out where you're happy, where you're not happy. So the well-being assessment is actually part of those first 5 chapters.
Great. Now, one more question around when people feel like they're getting stuck on something, what tidbits, what could you offer around that? If somebody's feeling stuck either for a month or a couple months or a year on a goal or something, what advice might you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So part 1 would be, there's a couple of things that you can do, but one thing that I find to be really, really powerful is to do a little journaling around it. But I do my journaling a little different. And so if you're feeling stuck on something, sometimes you have some negative or some repressed emotions that are probably going to be attached to that. And so I like to just journal that out. Just sit down, just let her rip, like all the things that you would not say, but you're thinking or that are deep down inside, just boom, just write that all out. You can type it, you can write it, whatever. But when you're done with it, the trick is that you have to rip up the pages. Or if you typed it out, you have to delete it because it's not a journal that somebody's ever going to come back and see. And that's where the power of it comes from, is that nobody's ever going to see it. So you can really go deep, you can really go there. And try to go for 15 or 20 minutes. Like, even if at the beginning you're just not quite sure, once that gate starts to open, just those floodgates, just let them go and just vent off everything, but then rip up and destroy the pages, okay? It's very healing to process to just be like, okay, I'm gonna let all this stuff go. And the reason why I suggest that first is that you've gotta kind of vent off that top layer of crap so that you can get down into your intuition, get more in touch with yourself and kind of figure out what it is that might be causing you to be stuck. So that's one option. Another option would be to take a look at your daily habits, because sometimes we're staying stuck on something simply because our habit doesn't support the goal of where we're trying to go to. So let's say that you're trying to save money and you're not saving money and you're spending every dollar that comes in, right? Well, you're just in the habit of not saving. You're in the habit of spending every dollar. And so you've got to really take a look at those habits and go, wait a second, I want to be in the habit of saving. Okay, so go look at your, I just pulled the thing up. Go look at your expenses and, find something that you don't need, because we all have something in our budgets that we don't need. Cancel it and then take that money and start saving it. Even if it's like $10 a month, like some little amount, it's okay. But it's building that steady, consistent habit of I save, I save, I save, and that will also help you kind of get unstuck. So those are a couple of things that you can do if you've really been stuck on a goal and you're just like, why can't I get past this?
Yeah, so a baby step to start implementing.
Yeah.
Just something that you can accomplish without it being too scary, too challenging in whatever way.
Right. And just lower the bar to almost to the point where you just can't fail, where it just feels super easy. And then you'll know when it's like, hey, I could do a little more. Hey, I could do a little more. But it's getting into those steady, consistent daily habits that are really the key. If you're just like, why am I failing? Look at your day, where your time's going, what your habits are. That's almost certainly like where it is. If you're just like, oh, I don't have enough time to look at all of this stuff or whatever, journal that stuff out.
So
You got to get through all of that and be in a mindset of willing to look at it and being willing to change. And if you're carrying a lot of repressed stuff, that's going to be very difficult.
and willing to take those daily steps, like you
Yeah.
said, with the planner, with maybe meditation. Do you
Yeah.
walk your clients through that as well, setting up that daily routine? And
Yeah, absolutely. We go through creating a whole daily morning, evening, the whole thing routine that's going to help set them up to be successful. I don't have a cookie cutter routine that I'm just like, oh, do this. No.
very different.
Yeah, you've got to figure out what your own is, and you've got to be willing to change.
Yeah, great. Any last thoughts as we tie
Oh
this
my goodness. No, just, whatever you want to do, you can do it. You can absolutely do it. Just, it's so funny. Like New Year's resolutions get such a bad rap. And I'm like, resolutions work if you're willing to change your mindset and your behaviors. As long as you're willing to change, then it's going to work. But if you're not willing to change, that's why they don't work. It's not the resolution, it's the change. And what is this summit about? Change, right? We have to embrace the change, be willing to change. So just be willing to, to change what's happening, and you can absolutely change your life.
Great. Any last thoughts around how to find the inspiration to create that change?
Oh my goodness. The inspiration it's definitely within you. If you can figure out and just do some thinking on, well, why do I want to change? Why is it important to be healthier? Why is it important to me to, have a business? Like, think about your why. I want to live longer for my kids. I want to set a great example for my kids. I want to travel the world, whatever it happens to be. If you can start to connect with that why, sometimes that can kind of help give your inspiration a little boost.
Great. All right. Well, I want to thank the listeners for being here. I want to thank you, Jennifer, for this interview. And this can be found on earthiswakingup.com. And if you'd like to work with Jennifer Dawn some more, at jenniferdawncoaching.com.
Yes.
And,
awesome.
thebestdayplanner.com as well, right?
Yes, bestplannerever.com. You got it.
There you go. All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.